Hello everybody and welcome to another video. In today's video we are going to be sticking with the medieval period and we're going to be doing a bit of a build, paint and review. Now the folks over at the Tabletop Workshop got in touch with me and asked if I'd be interested in looking at one of their latest releases, which is the 28mm square fortified tower. Now this can be used on its own or allegedly it will also fit in with the castle walls that they already have released, which I own. So some of you may remember that I did a castle build about 3 years ago where I used a lot of the pieces from the Tabletop Workshop and I put together a castle for Siege games set in the Wars of the Roses. So Tabletop Workshop have put together a pack of connectors so this tower can be built and included as part of the castle. So in this video I want to have a look at how well that actually goes together. The other kits they're a little bit older now and this new kit looks really good. I want to see how well it fits in with everything that we have so far. Now I appreciate that a lot of the people who are watching this may not have even seen the videos with the castles in, so I will leave a link down below to the builds and to one of the battle reports which included it. But for those of you who would like to see it, here is one of the round towers that I completed already for the castle. So hopefully you can see here the connectors that I used on this one. So hopefully the connectors and everything that are on this new kit should fit together quite nicely. Now I thought what I would do as well, I would make this into a little bit of a painting video and show you how I do this effect on the stone, because when I do use the castle in videos or in pictures, it's one of the most common questions I get, and even though I did a bit of a painting video before, I figured it wouldn't hurt to do it again. So as you can see, I will use these pieces throughout the video to essentially compare and also see if I can match the color tones a little bit. So the kit comes in this handy bag, which is an alternative because the other kits used to come in boxes. You get this sort of instruction leaflet included. I have a few thoughts on this because I just feel like this could have been done with either being a bit bigger or maybe sort of double-sided, so they could have made some of the instructions a little bit bigger. It's a fairly standard affair. You have multiple hard plastic sprues in here with all of the pieces nicely laid out. Here you can see the crenellated top of the tower, the merlons, and on this side here you can see the floors and wall pieces that make up the bulk of the tower. Now something that's really nice, they have matched the stonework to the previous castle pieces, so if you have got those previous castle pieces, this does fit in. And when you have a look at the connectors here, it basically gives you everything you need. Now I will come on to something that's quite cool, that means if you buy the connectors you get a little bit essentially extra stuff because you'll be replacing some of the walls with the pieces you can see here. This is how those connectors look once they're assembled and painted. It's a very straightforward system. You sort of just slide the other connectors on top of them and they lock into place. You just have to remember that when you're mid-game and you go to remove a piece, because if they are connected you'll pull the whole castle apart. So just to get things started, I just remove everything from the sprues with the clippers, and I always do a little bit of a dry fit before using polystyrene cement, plastic glue to stick it together. And then once I get all of the pieces sort of in line, I always pop an elastic band around these things just to keep everything in place. I feel that's particularly important when you're doing a building like this because, as you can see, the rooms essentially stack on top of each other, and you don't want you want that to line up, and if you have anything that expands or moves as it's drying, then that won't look too good. So using the instructions here, you can see that these larger wall pieces are used for building the room that would normally be directly below the crenellations, which is what you can see I've built here. However, because we are using the connectors kit, we have extra pieces. So here, this would be the normal height of the tower if you haven't got the connectors kit. But we do have the connectors kit. So what we're going to do, we're going to build an extra floor on top of what we have. So snipping out the crenellations is nice and straightforward, and these smaller pieces here are for the base. Now, some people seem to have had a few problems getting these bits together from what I've seen from other videos. You just have to be very firm when pushing them together, and just make sure that you've got a liberal amount of glue on there, and that should just secure everything in place. Again, you could just whack a elastic band around it to hold it. Now, once the merlons and the crenellations are dry, it's just a simple case of slotting them onto the side of the tower like so. There's little tabs on the top of them that you can just sort of slot into each other. And I've got to be honest, the kit went together really, really well. I didn't have to do too much in the way of trimming down, and essentially everything went the way it was supposed to. Now, my only complaint at this stage, again, is with the instructions. I did feel that they were a little bit small, couldn't really see a lot of detail, so I would prefer to see that on a larger sheet, or certainly double-sided. So here you can see the whole tower. Now, again, because we've got the connectors, and we don't need to use 4 walls down below, we could use those walls. And as you can see, I've built an extra level to the tower. So if you are building this into your castle, you are going to get some extra height. Now, to finish the actual build of the castle off, you just need to put these sort of footings in. This just gives it some added stability, and these go in really, really simply. They just slot into place, and then they sort of rest on top of each other. And then once that's done, the last thing to do is add the doors, and you get a lot of these. You're going to have some stuff left over from this, so you could just put these at ground level, or if, like me, you want to have a few steps leading up to them, you can sort of snip the steps to the sort of the length that you want, so the porch is sticking out the desired length. So just pop a little bit of glue on there, stick it against the wall you want to, and then these small tabs that are on the bottom of the doors should just slot quite nicely into place. Now, as this is going to be in a castle, I thought having 2 doors would be quite fun, but you can have as many as you like. And here is the finished model. This is just prior to priming. As you can see, I have left all of the levels separate. You could glue them all together, but I like the ability to take them apart. It means also I don't have to have it the full height if I don't want to. And if you are playing a game where figure placement within the buildings is important, you could even take it apart like this and play a multi-level game. That would be particularly useful for RPGs or sort of more skirmish-based games. I'm really pleased with the ground floor here. There's a nice amount of interior detail as well, which probably isn't going to get seen a whole lot. But I have to be honest, I feel like the idea of using the floor of the level above as the connecting point was actually really clever, because normally you'd expect to see it of the lower floor, and then things sitting on top of the walls. Now, to get started on the painting, I just rattle canned the entire thing black very, very liberally all over, and just set it aside to dry for a little while, and then also sprayed the floors inside as well, which made things nice and simple. Now, my big thing about painting castles and stone in general is it's very rare that stone is ever sort of grey or the typical colour that we see. So I like to start from a brown base, and I'm using AK Interactive Red Brown, and I do well, it's not even really dry brushing, it's just a heavy overbrush over the whole area. It doesn't matter, just all of it, just the floors, the doors, the buttresses, absolutely everything, just so we've got a nice base to work off. Following that, I'm using AK Interactive Decomposed Flesh, and I just do a nice, really light dry brush over the stones, always going in the same direction, so just a downward motion, and that's very simply just to pick out the details on all of those rocks. And then when we get to the actual floors themselves, I essentially sort of feather it a bit like you would with camo. Now, finally, I use ivory color from AK Interactive, and I don't paint this over the whole area. I just dry brush it in areas that I think are going to be a bit more worn or a little bit more weathered. And as you can see, I feel like it already brings together a really, really nice effect. Now, the next stage, I'm using AK Interactive brownish green, but any sort of off green brown color will do. I'm going to add a little bit of sort of mold and, you know, other build up to sort of random areas on the tower. Now, it's quite handy that the tower is in multiple pieces because it makes this a lot easier, but I like to focus around the windows and in other areas sort of like that as well that may see a little bit of build up of sort of residue. Now, using Vathan red brown, I'm going to come and do the same and just hit a few other areas, really lightly dry brushing just to get a little bit of color variation. Now, finally, this is the only time I ever actually use a grey, and I'm using AK's neutral grey, and again, I just come in really lightly dry brush a couple of areas just to bring in some visual interest and colour variation. And this is it. This is after all of the initial dry brushing, and to be honest, I think this would be fine to put on the table now. Obviously, you've still got to do the doors and that, but I do like to add some effects and some additional weathering. Here you can see it with the gatehouse, and I'm really pleased with the colour match. I mean, it doesn't matter if it doesn't exactly match, because, you know, castles were always being added to with extra pieces throughout the ages, and they're never going to look the same. Now, I use Citadel's Militarum Green. It's one of their contrast paints, and I like to do this to sort of really give a bit of extra sort of emphasis to the areas of mold and build up. So I just blob a little bit on, and I use my finger and I just draw it downwards. I tend to target the areas that I've already put the brownish green on, but you could use other areas, so under windows, in sort of nooks and crannies, down the side of things where people aren't going to be able to clean and maintain things. Now, I don't want to go too mad with this because certainly inside the castle, then they are going to try and keep things a little bit clean. I'm using AK's streaking grime, and yeah, just putting this in sort of areas again that I think it will just look good. Once I've sort of blobbed it on with the brush, I use I believe they're called a Q-tip in the States. Over here, they're called a cotton bud. I just dip that in some alcohol, and I just draw it down across where the streaking grime is, and then feather it out, and you just get this nicely weathered look. Now, it does pull the paint off in a couple of places, but I don't mind that. I think it all sort of just adds to the overall effect. The doors I just do with the contrast paint Gore Grunter Fur. I just liberally put that all over it. I think it's just a nice rich colour, and it's one of my favourite paints that from Citadel. So I just go around and do all of those doors. All of the painting that you've done already, like the dry brushing, gives it a nice undercoat to work off and adds a little bit of variation. And then finally, I use MIG Ammo Steel, and I just pick out all of the metal details on the door, so the hinges and the door handle. And that's essentially it. That's done. When I did the walls, I did use some weathering pigments because I figured that you know, to put some dirt on them, because I thought, you know, that's where a lot of people are going to be walking. But as most of the floors in here are enclosed, I didn't bother at this point. And here you can see all 4 pieces. And I'm pleased with the color match. There's a slight variation, so maybe this tower was built at a later date by another sort of family member who was looking to fortify the building a little bit more, but I think it looks close enough that yeah, you're not going to be able to tell the difference too much. And there we go. That is how I paint sort of these type of buildings. Now, I have to say, the Tabletop Workshop have done a really good job at matching the sort of the style and the details of the other pieces of the castle that already exist. I mean, these kits have come out a few years apart. If there were things I'd like to see added onto this, maybe some extra details would be really nice. If you could add a flagpoles or maybe a trapdoor cover on the stairs at the top there, that would be really nice to see. Or maybe some sort of stacked rocks at the top for repelling invaders. If there was a sprue in here of just extra details, that would be very, very nice. Now, the tower and the connectors are available to order from the Tabletop Workshop now, and I'll leave links down below. The tower on its own is £20.50, and the connectors are £9.99. So if you want the whole thing here, it's just over £30. As you can see, it links perfectly well with the walls already out. So if you do own that castle and you're looking for a little way to expand it, then this is certainly a really good option. If you haven't got a castle and you're looking to buy one, they do have bundle deals on there where you'll get 4 towers and the wall sections and the gatehouse as well. Anyway, there we go. I hope you guys have enjoyed this sort of quick review paint build video. Overall, my review of this is it's a really good standard kit. I think it could have done with a few extra, maybe a sprue of details you could add, and the instructions I think need to be on slightly bigger paper. But this kit itself, I can't fault. I'm going to be getting another one. I really want to expand my castle and get it on the table. So stay tuned for the channel for some siege games, certainly in the Barons Wars and the Wars of the Roses coming up. A big thank you to Tabletop Workshop for sending this over for me to have a look at. As always, I will stick some photos up at the end for you guys to see, and let me know down below in the comments what you think. What would you use this for? Would you just build it as a single tower and use it as a watchtower, or are you tempted to build a fortress and start fighting over that for the glory of your lord? Anyway, I will see you all again soon in another video. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.